There we go. Welcome, everyone. There's some familiar faces. I'm really happy to see that. We are going to start in a minute or so. And so just relax. We are just waiting. We in South Africa, so we will give people just a minute or two to join. And then I'll give you, there we go. Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, if we think about the future, which is, if you think the theme of ACRE this year, the ACRE 27 conference is seeing the future first. But if you consider looking into the future 3 weeks from today, if you are at the ACRE conference, you would have just had your first full day of the conference. So if you've not yet booked onto the conference, it's a good idea to do it as soon as possible. We are running out of spaces. I think at last count, we had about 10 to 15 spots open. So with 3 weeks to go, those 15 spots are going to go really, really quickly. Good. Let's slowly kick this off. We are very privileged this evening to have Frank Prince all the way from the United States to talk to us a little bit about predictive thinking or prediction. Apologies. Now, I'm just going to give you a sort of a one-sentence overview of who Frank is. If you've read the bio, you would see there's much more to him. But he's an author, he's a mentalist, he's a hypnovation consultant, hypnovation being his own innovation as a replacement for brainstorming. And he's very used to working with large corporate companies and mostly with the Fortune 100 companies. So he's in a unique position to talk to us from a point of creativity, creative thinking, and of course, understanding how big business use all of this. But before we give Frank the opportunity to share all of his knowledge with you, our structure this evening, I'm going to just in a minute give over to Dr. Kobus Neethling just to give a little bit of an introduction as well. And then Frank will take us through a little presentation. And at the end of that presentation, there's going to be time for a little bit of Q&A. Now, what is very important is if you want to ask a question, there's a couple of ways in which you can do it. You can either write it in the chat, but please just keep it on everyone, or if you are shy about your question, send your question to me specifically. I'll be monitoring the chat box, and if there's any questions, I will feed those questions to Frank, or I'll give one or two of you the option, of course, to come live and ask your question directly to Frank if you wanted to. So without much more, let me hand over to Dr. Kobus Neethling.
Yeah, hi everyone, and thank you, Francois. Francois has been a sterling colleague on the steering committee. Been wonderful work. So thank you, Francois. Really appreciate this, and also thank you to Frank. I wanted to know and remember, when I met Frank for the first time, but it's so long ago, I just can't go so far back. It's a very, very, very long time ago. And we've had many great experiences everywhere, fun, serious, and so on. But there's one or two that just actually stand out. Many years ago, Riche and I and Frank, we wrote the book Whole Brain Sexuality, and of course a title like that will also cause a lot of riot, and so what happened was that at SIPSI one year I said to Frank, let's do a night flight on this whole brain sexuality. Now, for those that don't know what a night flight is, normally at the end of the day there's anyone that can come and you can present, even if you're not on the program. It's normally about an hour, and if you're lucky, you get 15 to 20 people attending. That's kind of a night flight. So we said to Frank, let's do that, and we put up a nice little poster there, what we will do. And so we were expecting our 20 people at 6 o'clock and the 1 hour shot, but it's not the way it happened. What happened was that I think it's about 200 people that pitched up. We had to change rooms a number of times to accommodate all of them. And that session ended at 10:30 in the evening. So it was just a crazy time. We did it the second year again, and the next year we did it again. And again, there was this chaos that erupted. And then we were told, please don't never do it again by the bosses or whatever. And so we didn't do it again. But we've had, as I said, many great moments. And Frank was presenting at our conference last year. He gave the keynote, and this year he will be back again with his wife that will present the opening keynote. And it's just enormous contributions that Frank has made, not only here in South Africa, but just about all over the world. As you can see in the work that he's done, his title and whatever, he's always probing the edges. And I love that. He's always testing the boundaries. And he's been doing that for years and years and years. And so Frank, we are honored and we're privileged to have you tonight to present the webinar. You and Sherry at the conference. It's just great to have you back again. So go for it. Thank you very much.
All right. So let's see. He's going to shift it over to me. I want to get us started with if you look behind me, I'm actually in a garage. Everybody was wondering, where in the world are you? What are you doing? And I'd like to let people know is that the garage has always been known as a place for true innovation. Things are created in garages all around the world. It's quite the place for people to think and experiment and explore. And I believe when COVID hit, it led me to spending more time in my garage, actually, creating and just having fun in here. And so I ended up moving my office into the garage, which allows Sherry to have our office in the house, which she actually enjoys too. So I think it's a balance for both of us. So one of the things about the whole notion of creation led me to thinking about the theme for this conference. And what I came up with basically was the whole notion of predicting the future. And so it's something that I've spent time with. I actually created a model around predicting the future. And I thought, what a perfect thing to share with the group today would be this whole notion of predicting the future. And so when you begin to think about the whole notion of predicting the future, it leads me to thinking about a term called, are you clever or are you clairvoyant? So if you think about predictors of the future, you have people like fortune tellers. And, I would say I've been doing some more work as a mentalist in addition to hypnosis. And mentalists are real big about predicting the future. And there's even people who call themselves futurists. And so as you begin to explore this whole notion of being able to predict the future, what are some strategies for that? And so what I want to do is I want to share with you an example of predicting the future. Now, right now, I've got Cobus's video up as the main video, and I don't know, is there a way, Francois, to switch me to the presenter video?
Yeah, you should be. I see you as the main presenter at the moment, Frank.
Oh, okay. So, and now it's got the dog. Huh. All right. So that's funny. All right. So I'm small on here. Desktop view. All right. So I'm much smaller, but I think I can. And it's got you now, Francois. I wonder. Usually it switches based on who's talking. There I am. Hey, somehow I came up. So I'm it. This is good because it helps me to be able to show you what I'm doing right here. So I'm going to be really focused on what you guys can see. And the reason behind this, and I know it seems kind of cryptic that I'm doing it this way, is that I want to show you that I'm not cheating. All right. And so not cheating means that behind me here is I have a prediction number 1 and a prediction number 2. So this morning, I'm going to make 2 predictions. And so from those predictions, you'll be able to see if I have the ability to predict the future. How about that? Sound good? All right. So with that, prediction number 1, let's see what this is about. So the way I'm going to do this is I want you're going to be utilizing the chat. And it's pretty simple because what I want you to do is I've got a series of 6 numbers and cards. All right. So in the chat, I want you to pick one of those numbers and put it into the chat. All right. So everybody who has the ability to plug in something into the chat, pick your number, pick a number in there. All right. All right. So they're coming in. They're coming in. All right. So I don't have any way to know which numbers would get the highest number of votes. But if I were to look at the chat right now, I see, wow, let me hear 55336445. 5 wins. Okay, we're going to go with 5. It got the most votes. All right. So this means that right here, gotta get it where you can see it. Okay, that you picked the number 5 card. All right. So I've got a rubber band up here. So what I want to do is I'm going to slide that card in. All right. And so that's the chosen card. Now, we want to see what the other cards are. And I'm going to keep this here so you know I'm not fooling around with it. And so I have a prediction over here. And it has to do with the card you chose because you didn't choose this one. And this card was a joker. All right. You didn't choose this card. And that card is a joker. You didn't choose this card. And that card is a joker. Huh. You didn't choose this card. Another joker. And you didn't choose this card. Another joker. So the question is, what was my prediction over here? So let's bring the prediction up. Let's make sure I don't cheat any. We're going to slide out of here. And I said, you will not pick a joker. So what did you pick? You picked the 7 of diamonds. Oh, how did I know that? Well, it's because this is your selection. Good job. So you guys did that, not me. Simple prediction of the future, right? Pretty simple. So here's what I want to do is I want to share with you a model. And this model deals with you being able to say, I can predict the future if I use a strategy. And so one of the ways to get to this strategy, and I'm going to teach you the underlying piece behind getting to the strategy, is knowing how the strategy itself works. So I want to show it to you up here. And the way I want to show it to you up here is I want to put us as people here. All right. That's us. And this is the future as we look forward. And so if this is us now, and out here in the future, something happens.
Future state.
something happens, something happens.
It's Frank's webinar to South Africans.
You start noticing in the future, I'm starting to see data points of things that I believe are going to happen. And what's weird about it is that your brain is sorting from, all the things that are out there, but you begin to notice. And when you begin to notice, I notice this is happening. I notice this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. Things happen around here. But I'm starting to notice in this area right here, things are starting to coalesce and come together. And it's leading me to begin to think that this is going to be so in the future. So what happens is that if your brain is sorting and finding more and more of these, you can start to predict, I bet this will come true. I bet this will happen. And so for you right here exists a window of opportunity, basically, to be able to predict the future. Now, once you reach that window of opportunity, others are already starting to predict it. You're almost too late if you're in a business and you go, let's wait and see. The window passes by and then the future becomes the now and you missed that opportunity. And so if you begin to think about the ability to predict the future, it really deals with you being able to sort for things from the environment. And I know that recently, there's been a lot in the US around moving to electric cars. California has passed some laws around changing all cars over by a certain year. And that this whole switch to electric around cars is causing data points to coalesce in the future. And I think one of them may actually affect South Africa quite a bit because it deals with copper. So if you were to think about data points around the future and copper being associated with electric cars, one of the data points is that in the US, we do not have enough charging stations for all cars to be electric, period. So if you were to be sitting here nowadays and saying, I'm going to make a prediction in the future that we're going to have many chargers, people are going to have them in their homes, and it's going to require a lot of electric, it's going to require a lot of wiring, and copper and aluminum are our primary sources of wiring for those. So the prediction for the future is copper is going to be a very valuable resource rapidly. Something to think about. So if you were in the metals marketplace, you might be thinking more about copper and maybe aluminum, but aluminum is not as efficient as a predictor of the future in terms of something that's going to go up in value. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and buy copper shares, but you might want to pay attention to it if you have an interest in an environment, a marketplace that may have huge success in the future. So that's just an example of data points that start to coalesce. They coalesce to the point where you can make a prediction, and based on that prediction, you could act now versus waiting and saying, oh, wow, I wish I'd invested in copper. And it's so funny because it makes me think of the classic movie, It's a Wonderful Life, where George, the character, is told he should invest in plastic. So it's an interesting thing when you don't know, but you have enough data that supports maybe you could do something about it. So what underlies this process? How do you actually make this work for you? And what I want to share with you, and I'm going to ask Francois to share my screen with you. I'm going to clear this stuff out of the way, and I'm going to place this up. All right. So do you have my a picture up there, the reticular activating system?
Nope, just hit the green share screen button.
Oh, hold on. Let me escape out. I didn't hit it beforehand. Sorry. There we go. Share screen. Desktop 2. Share. And we're there. The RAS. Okay. We're going to put it full screen. There you go. All right. So what I want to share with you is that a very, very important part of this notion of predicting the future is for you to program within your own brain this tiny little spot called the RAS, or the reticular activating system. And what's interesting about the RAS is we take in information through our eyes, ears, and senses, and they all come up through this one spot and then are distributed out to the brain based on what we're observing. And so the RAS becomes our sorter system. Now, what's powerful about this RAS as a sorter system is that it acts as a filter. And the reason it does is we would be like squirrels. We couldn't pay attention to everything that's always coming into our mind, and we would go nuts. So the RAS says, I'm going to filter out the stuff that's not important to me right now, and I'm only going to focus on those things that I've made important. Now, this is huge. This is huge because it's what helps you to find things from the environment that you would miss if you've programmed it yourself. Now, if you don't program it to want or desire things, it won't sort and find those for you. So this is a very, very powerful place in the brain for you to program. So programming the RAS is what I want you to understand, is that I want to focus a little bit on programming that RAS. And I'll give you a simple example of programming the RAS, and that would be when, for example, you decide it's time to get a new car, and you start looking around at cars and you notice one particular model. I like that kind of car, might be one I'd be interested in buying. As soon as you do that, the RAS gets programmed. It says, this is important to you. You're thinking about buying one. I'm going to notice from the environment those cars whenever they drive by. And I don't know how many of you have done that before, but let me tell you, you'll be driving along and next thing you know, you see one. It's like, oh, there goes one. Oh, there's another one. Oh, that one's a different color than the one I'd seen before. I kind of like that color. You begin to sort from all those cars that are driving past you, and it pulls into conscious awareness that one that you seek and or desire. And so it becomes the sorter for you. And it's very, very powerful because your conscious mind was not driving along saying, look for these cars for me. Your conscious mind was busy doing whatever it was doing. And the RAS said, stop, pay attention. I want you to notice that because you told me to look for it and I found it for you. So this becomes a very important part of our ability to say, if I haven't got it programmed for things that I desire, then I'm not going to pull them from my environment, and therefore they won't become a part of my life. So I consider it to be one of the most important strategies for bringing things into your life from the outside world. So what I want to do is I want to give you an example. There's a video that helps to show you how the RAS can work. And that's going to be the next thing here. And I want you to watch this video. It's a test. right. So just an example, I don't know how many people, I absolutely did not notice either of those changes. And the RES wasn't told to look for changes besides what was asked for. Now it's interesting because there's a video that's been out a really long time of people doing a bounce pass back and forth to each other. And when they do the bounce pass, you count the number of bounces. And while they're doing it, a gorilla walks in and out of the group. And many people miss this gorilla walking right through the middle of the group. And so it's another good example of we pick up on what we sort for. And if we're not sorting for something, we could miss something very obvious as a part of our environment. So what I wanted to do is say, okay, so if we know that, what if we were to program the RS and say, I want to look for differences, I want to sort for change. So I'm kind of cheating the system a little bit here in that there's a whodunit video, which deals with a man. He's going to tell you a little bit of a story or a little bit, and he's interviewing, I think there's 3 different people to figure out who the murderer was. And so he tells you a little bit about what to sort for. And then what I want you to do is notice differences. So the RES needs to pick up on differences. So I'm going to run it and then stop it and see if you can notice differences. Now this one takes a little bit for YouTube to load. This is being downloaded straight off YouTube.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
Why, I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
Okay, I'm going to pause it there. And I'd like to hear from anybody. What are some of the changes that you noticed? Anybody? Can I hear anybody? Have I lost it?
Just type it into chat.
Oh, they're putting it into chat. So I'm not,
Yeah.
mine's not showing chat. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, there you go. All right. So here's what I want you to think about is that it was set up so you could see it. And what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to start it back at the beginning. I'm going to have you watch it one more time and see, notice looking at it now, and then notice changes. Here we go.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally
Nope. I didn't do that, it did it.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
Why, I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
Did you know?
Madam, as any horticulturist will tell you, one does not plant petunias until May is out. Take her away. It's just a matter of observation. The real question is, how observant were you? Action. Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place?
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
But I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
All right, so I wanted to share that. We're going to go back to the RAS in a second, but it's interesting. It was amazing, first off, to see that many things done in one take on a video. But the total number of things that were possible for us to be able to pick up on was incredible in that change. Yet still, it's hard to believe that it was done in that way. This was done in the UK, kind of showing the point that we don't see bicyclists and even motorcyclists. And the RS isn't really sorting for them. And if we could bring it to conscious awareness that, hey, look out for bikes, look out for motorcyclists, that the RS would sort for them, and that it would help us to notice them versus being totally unaware that they're there. So this was a campaign they were running. So the RAS is important if you program it for those things that you find important. And there's an inventor in the United States that was very, very, very prolific. And I don't know how many of you have heard of him, but his name is Charles Kettering. Many people know him based on the Sloan Kettering Institute for Cancer, which was founded and became important to him because his wife had cancer, and he was such a prolific inventor. But way back when Kettering first started inventing, he had a process of programming his RAS to sort for invention. And he had hundreds of patents and all kinds of major inventions. He was actually the person who created the electric starter for a car. And back then, you had to get out in front of your car and start it with the hand crank. And one of his best friends got killed because he was in front of the car. A car hit the rear end of the car and killed him. And he said, you should never have to get out of your car to start it. And that led him to inventing the electrical system for a car, then the starter. And he always had these ways so that the RAS, the way the RAS can be programmed is if it's emotionally important to you, then it will begin to sort for that from the environment. And so the more emotional attachment you have to it, the stronger the RAS sorts for potential solutions and or ideas. And so I think that's an important part to this. If I was to show you the way the RAS works, is that I'm going to share this after the whodunit. Let me get this loaded. The RAS. So the RAS leads, let me show you that, leads to ideas. So it won't just pick single things from the environment. Once you've programmed the RAS to sort for solutions, then it moves to ideas, which is really great because it has access to the whole brain, which is really cool. So it'll come up with ideas, and that's the seeds for the aha experience. So Charles Kettering, amazing man. He invented the electric starter. That was his main thing. But he went on to invent quick dry paint. And when he first started, he was working in a Cadillac division in Pontiac, Michigan. And they had warehouses full of cars that were drying. It took 3 and 4 days for a car to dry. And we were coming off the assembly line so fast that they couldn't warehouse them long enough. And so he was tasked with finding a solution to quick dry paint. And his RAS was constantly sorting for it. And he found himself in New York City, and he found this little tray that was a lacquer tray. And he asked the person selling it, "Where'd you get it?" He says, "I got it from a guy in New Jersey." He went to New Jersey, said, "Oh my gosh, do you paint these trays?" He's like, "Yes, I use this special lacquer." He goes, "Oh, wow." He goes, "It looks like it'd be perfect for what I want to do." He goes, "No." He goes, "What do you want to do with it?" He goes, "I'm going to paint a car with it." He's like, "It's impossible. You put this lacquer in a spray gun and it will turn to dust before it even hits the door. It dries that fast." Boom, his brain, the RS said, "Wow, if I could homogenize this with my paint." And next thing you know, he had paint that could dry in an hour on cars. And so we can utilize the RAS if we program it to begin to sort for not only objects in the environment, but solutions from the environment by pulling from the whole brain in order to get new ideas that it didn't have before. So the RAS is very important from that perspective. So my biggest message to you is take control of the RAS. Determine and say, I want to program the RAS to find from the environment the things that I've made important. And so at a more holistic level, at a larger level, many times, working with people around some of the stuff Sherry's going to be doing at the conference is around purpose work. Why are we here? What do we do? Her opening is going to be a lot about your purpose in life. And when you spend time focusing on why am I here? What am I about? And you start to find not only in your actions, but in other people's behaviors, those things that they associate to you through your purpose in life, the RAS is the most perfect place to say, wow, I want to find more purpose in my life, and it will find it. And it'll lead you to, much more purposeful work along the way because you're clear on it. You know what you want to sort for, and it puts it right there in front of you. So I think the RAS is also a nice place for purpose work. So once again, everything coming in through our senses goes into it. It sorts and it has access to the whole brain, which is amazing. If you've had any experience, hopefully you've had lots of experience with Cobus's whole brain profile. It's amazing when you start pulling from all those different parts of the brain in order to gain ideas and solutions. So I think it's a wonderful parallel to Cobus's work around that. So what I want to do is I'm going to stop sharing, and I want to pull this together by doing another prediction. And this is my second prediction that's back here. And we're going to do this prediction based on one is that I'd like to motivate more and more people to come to the conference. And so of the people who are signed up, I have no idea if we've got people there who haven't quite decided yet. They thought, well, maybe we'd attend this. And so I want to influence your decision even more. If you're already signed up, that's great, because the rules to this game here is this prediction I'm going to make is that you have the opportunity to win $100 US. All right. And so I'm going to make a prediction and you're going to be involved in it. And so the only way that you can claim your prize if you win is you're going to have to come and see me at my session in the conference. All right. So that means you're going to have to sign up and come. If you haven't signed up, if you're already signed up, that's great, because you'll have the opportunity now to be a winner of that. So the way we're going to do this is I've got a table here. I want to to be able to set these up on. And so right here I have all 4 of them. So we got 4. So you've got 4 of these to choose from. One of these has $100 bill in it. So what I'm going to have you do is, once again, utilizing the chat, I'm going to have you go in now, not yet, and you're going to, when I tell you to, you're going to pick out a color. We're going, since this is red, we'll call this maroon. All right, that's the maroon one, green, red, and blue. And you're going to put in your choice, your pick. And the only way I was trying to think, okay, how am I going to get it down to a person out there? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down the number of the person before you put them in there. So I'm not cheating. What number person? And so we'll scroll down through the number of people who are in there. So if you want to put in a couple of times, you can, because when we get to this number person, that's the one who's going to be selected. All right. Okay. So the number may be higher than the number of people, so you can put in twice or 3 times if you want to. Okay, ready, begin. Wow. Okay, I think we've got enough. I think we've got plenty. You can stop there. All right. So you're going to have to help me. Who is it? It's the 12th person. Let's see. We start with green. 1, 2, 3. 2 reds don't count. So we'll start 1 red. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Shane. Shane guessed blue. All right, Shane. Okay, so you guessed blue. All right, let's see how Shane did. Shane, are you on the video? Do we see you as one of the, I don't see you up here, but I only see about 6. So, okay, so Shane guessed blue. All right. So, should we take maroon? An empty cup. Nothing. That's good. All right. Green. Empty cup. You're looking good now, 50-50. What do you think? Empty cup. All right, so here we go. What do you think? Oh my gosh. Guess what, Shane? This is yours to come and get from me at the conference. So good job. Now I had a prediction back here, and my prediction card said, you will win. Excellent job. I hope you guys had a good time today, and go out and predict the future. Thank you. Questions? Oh, and I'll turn the screen back.
Okay, guys, capture a quick question, or if you want to, you can just click there on the reactions button and just indicate to me that you've got a question. It looks like Brian has a question. I'm just going to ask him to unmute himself.
Yeah. If I also got blue, do I get a runners-up prize?
I wish.
Thank you. Good job.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think this recording, Francois, I see a thing on there on the recording. Yeah, that this recording is going to be somehow they're doing a recording of this.
Yes, I'm just quickly capturing Shane, just a moment. I am putting the link to the conference website. On the conference website, Shane, you'll see where you can book your spot to come to the conference. And thanks to Frank's generosity, that $100 will probably cover about just a little less than a third of your conference fee. So that's a nice discount. I see Mary Ellen, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question? Let me just see if I can find you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. Hey, Frank.
Hey there.
What you did with us today, the couple of exercises are exactly the same that you would do in a corporate environment, or would you introduce them differently?
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, one of the things I found is that the whole prediction thing and the whole mentalism side has become fascinating for me because it draws people in and it makes them think about how they think. So what I'll do is I'll use these as setups for here's how your brain's working, and it moves into the field of possibility. It's like, that's impossible. How in the world could he have done that? And then you move into the field of possibility. At the conference, I'm going to do an entire session on mentalism. The first half of the session, I'm going to do it. And so people will be at like, oh, wow, you know, this is amazing. And then afterwards, I'm going to teach people how to do those things so they could take them out and use those with businesses and stuff. So I do actually use it in those ways and kind of balance a little bit of going into now, how does this apply in my everyday? And so a good example is that whole notion of turning the RAS into a problem solver for you. Because so many people don't quite understand how does that aha experience work. And maybe we could program more for it to happen by knowing and being more consciously aware. So great question, though. I do use these exactly.
Yeah. Frank, I'll just add to that while we're waiting for someone else. I see there's another question, but let me ask you this first. Often when people are not in the mode of creatively and curiously looking towards the future, the brain actually perceives things that change in a threatening way. And I think in a lot of ways, a lot of people won't look towards the future because there's too much uncertainty. And in some cases, that uncertainty is perceived as a threat. So the brain just shuts down. So what do you suggest people do to start looking towards the future with curiosity and anticipation and even a little sense of adventure?
Yeah. Well, some people, I think there's varying opinions about this, but I find that you can program negativity in through things like news and stuff that that feeds you what to sort for. And so I think that the challenge becomes that if you can think on your own and not have other people thinking for you and programming you to sort for from your environment those things that they find negative, because once they tell you this is a bad thing, I want you to start looking for it, you'll start finding that bad thing. And so that whole notion of could you shift from a negativity mindset to positivity, the above the line thinking, Cobus has done some excellent work on that whole positivity. It really is a part of what shifts you to noticing and sorting for the things that then become more motivating and move you forward versus this is bad and it's not in my control and woe is all of this stuff. So I think that shift towards, like you said, when the mind's not focused on something, the negative stuff could start coming out, but it's also how you program it. And I always tell people, it's like, don't fall asleep in front of the TV with news on, because you're programming the brain. It's listening to all of that, even as you drift off to sleep. Program it with the things that you want to put into it, not the things that you're unaware of, because it listens all the time.
Thanks. That's a very nice explanation. Marlies has also got a question. Let's see if we can get her.
Oh, a few ways we can train our brain to notice more.
Yeah, just simple things that people can take away and start practicing is, yeah.
Yes, yes. Well, one of the things is I love it when something moves from an unconscious awareness to a conscious awareness, right? And so now that you are aware of how the RAS works, I want you, it's going to be really simple. I want you to begin to notice when the RAS notices something for you and you go, oh, it did it. And I know that there's a lot of ways to program the mind to start looking for things, but what you can do is utilize, current desires that you have, but you haven't acted on, and ratchet or move those up to higher level of importance. So by taking some action, it'll then lead to, it's one of the strategies that take action on something that's a desire of yours. Like I'm thinking about redoing our kitchen. Okay, so now I'm thinking about redoing the kitchen. I'm going to look in a few magazines at new kitchens, different kinds of kitchens. I do that. That's all it takes. My RAS says, okay, you're going to start noticing new kitchens now, and it will. And so I took the action. I had to take the actions and start looking, and then create a desire to want to know more about them. And next thing you know, handles on cabinets. I'm going to notice handles on cabinets. Next thing you know, everywhere you're going, you're noticing handles on cabinets because you programmed it in. So you have to take some action. I think if you do that, you'll begin to notice how effective it is and how it works.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, who wants to ask a last question?
So I'd just like to make a comment here, Scoobus, here at the end, and say thank you to Frank again. You know what is interesting? 2 days ago, I spent a one-day program with the South African, I don't know what you call them, sharpshooters or whatever, South African team competing in the World Championships in 4 weeks' time. 15 of them, and it's long distance, and it's 1,000 meters and so on. And what I've never had a rifle in my hand, I don't know what it looks like, but so we had to train these guys. But what came out of that, and I'd like to share this with Frank, is that I think you have the ability, Frank, that you could not only it's not only a learning experience for people here. It's because many people can create that. What you combine and integrate the learning experience with entertainment, with fun, it's a kind of a joyous that it stays in your human being. So you often forget the learning experience, but when it's sort of ingrained in everything, then you walk away and it's kept. You keep it in your mind and your body and your soul. So thank you for that, because I think it was again one of those experiences, Frank. There's a lot of learning, a lot of fun and good stuff and everything, and we really appreciate it. And looking forward, to seeing you again, meeting with you again at the conference and so on. And Joyce, but thank you. You're a special friend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, everyone, thanks. Vito, you just got in a little bit too late for that question, but I suggest you go and ask that question to Frank in person at the conference. Just before we close the session, I would like to remind you, next week we have Lee Kitchen. And Lee is an incredible creative thinker. He's worked for the Walt Disney Company for over 32 years. And he was at the pinnacle of whatever they were doing creatively in that company. So if you want to learn a little bit about creativity, I suggest you show up next week. I'm just getting some questions here. Frank, are you willing to spend another minute or two?
Oh, yeah.
I see Nomsa has got a question, and I think let's slip in Vito's question as well, but those will be the absolute last two. So let's go with Vito first. Vito, would you like to ask your question in person?
Sure. Can you hear me, Frank?
Yeah.
A little blast from the past here.
I was going to say Vito. Oh my gosh, it's been years. Yes.
Yep. I found you on LinkedIn, so it's great to connect again.
Oh, wow.
So the question that I have is, I understand how you can do it with yourself, but for example, if you've got, there are people, let's say at the bottom of the ladder, the accountability ladder, that are always, everything is bad. If you hand them a bag of money, they would complain that the bag is dirty. How can someone help influence positive thinking versus negative thinking?
Yeah, you bring to mind two strategies. One of them comes from my early days of study around neurolinguistics or neurolinguistic programming, NLP. And NLP teaches different strategies that people use. There's a strategy that people use, which is either move towards or move away from. And so as you run into people, their personality styles is a part of the way they sort from their environment, is that when you have a conversation with them, they'll find out what's wrong with it as their strategy, which is a move away from. And that programming of move away from is just a part of who they are. And the strategy really isn't to be negative, but it does come across as negative. Move towards are the people who they hear it and then they build on it automatically. And so if you have move away from people, they may totally be unaware that it's a negative perception in terms of the way they approached it. They're thinking they're helping you by showing you what's wrong with it. So one of the strategies with move away from versus move towards is the extremes. And so what interrupts a person's pattern is people will who move into negativity will make generalizations. And so, it's all bad. It's all bad. That's not one good thing. And so when you take them to the extreme, they're like, well, I didn't say that there's nothing good. Well, what's one good thing about it? And then all of a sudden now you're forcing them out of where they were to a place of exception. So if you can find a place of exception, these people who have a move away from a place where they want to show you what's wrong with it or tell you that, and you get them, then that exception breaks their pattern. And so it's a skill, because you have to have the patience to say, okay, well, let me find where that they're making a generalization, and that broad generalization is the place where you can break it. And it breaks the pattern, and then you can help them to see that even they can find one good thing about it, and that it's not totally general. You can't all or everything topics. So that's at least the strategy that I've used with making a shift.
But can I maybe just add here, because I have a fetish about negativity. I've written so much about it. I've actually, one of my whole brain instruments is to see what part of the brain creates negativity, because it's different people, and to get to the core of it and so on. And what we also found, I developed these little 29-day anti-negativity diaries, small. So when you have this thought, the brain can always give you a positive alternative, always. And we've tested this. Companies, our international sporting teams, many of them put this in their pocket when they travel overseas for 1 month of playing against other teams, because you don't lose with your body, you lose up here. And to make sure that, and the coaches all know this, and they make sure that there's no negativity, you get rid of it. And it's not your default, of course, to be positive, but after a while it does. It becomes a spontaneous, exactly what you said. It's relentless. You've got to keep with it all the time. But it's amazing when that liberation and that freedom of the spirit comes when you've got rid of it. It's kind of, this is a topic on its own. Sorry that I interrupted you, but I have to, because I have a passion for anti-negativity, you see.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have one more question, and this is going to be the last one that I allowed. So if you have the fear of missing out, Frank will be at the conference. I've also posted in the chat a link to all of our amazing presenters that will be presenting at ACRE 27. And if you look through that, you'll actually see there's many people flying in from all over the globe to come and share their creative expertise with all of you. So I'm going to ask Nomsa just to unmute herself and ask a question.
Thanks, Frank, for the session. My question is relating to RAS. How is it linked to abstract thinking, especially when you look at the exercise that we did of identifying changes in a corporate environment where you need to identify solutions in a problem-solving mode? How then do you use RAS in order to ensure that you identify things that are not so obvious in that setup? Thanks.
That's a great question, and using it, utilizing the creative problem solving language, divergent and convergent thought. When you begin to think about it, I always reference that the brain has two totally separate methodologies. One is its ability to diverge or create large lists. The other function of the brain, a different function of the brain, is the ability to converge and evaluate based on criteria that which it can come up with. And so that's the whole divergent convergent mode. And when you look at the RAS and you apply it to the divergent mode, when the RAS is sent to search for from the environment or from that which has been stored within the brain, it's in a divergent mode, looking and searching, finding, looking, searching, finding, which the brain has a wonderful ability to do that. And it stores it in certain places very similar in individuals. But also what's really great about the RAS is that it can be programmed in a convergent mode in where that you have a desire for it to sort from a big list of things that you have and find the best. And so the example would be, so the divergent mode is where you have the ability to bring a lot in that gives you more options. The convergent mode is where you want it to begin to sort from those things and give you the best combination, something you didn't see before because it was put together in a new way. And so the programming of the RS, the more specific you can be, the better the outcome is of what it's going to provide to you in terms of awareness or results that it delivers to conscious awareness. And so if you're very broad, you're going to get broad solutions. If you get more specific and more narrow. And I believe that it's one of the factors that if you do very much vision work, defining the future state, like for an organization or as an individual, and you get very specific where that you can see, hear, feel, taste, touch this thing or place you want to be in the future or a vision that you want to achieve, then what you've done is you've created a much better way to sort from the environment because you've gotten very specific. And typically visions that are created either for organizations or individuals that have a high level of detail are achieved faster. It comes faster than you ever thought was possible. And it's because of the level of detail. So I think that's a strategy, is get clear on the level of detail, especially when you're problem solving amongst those groups in a business about the desired outcomes.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. I think this is about enough for this evening. I would have loved if we could sort of continue this session for another hour or two, because there's so many fascinating topics that is actually just coming up for me, and I'm sure it's for you as well. So what I'm going to ask everyone, if you could unmute yourselves And I'm going to give you about 15 seconds before I end the session for all. And you can just speak up and you can speak over everyone and just say thank you to Frank in your own voice.
Thanks, Frank.
Ready?
Thank you.
Well done, Frank. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Frank.
Frank.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome to see you again, Frank.
All right.